Dr. Lisa here, episode 69. 69. I thought I'd play off of the whole thought process around 69 being the kind of inversions on each other people. And so I asked a longtime follower, colleague, Dr. Rose Schlaff, who's a sex coach and pelvic floor physical therapist, founder of Be Well with Rose LLC program, founder there, to come on. And I did a call out and I said, I need somebody who will help me, have no apologies necessary in playing off of that 69 for episode 69, and she so lovingly came on. Dr. Rose is a sex coach and pelvic floor physical therapist who has spent the last 5 years helping women and queer folk break down barriers to intimacy so that they can feel confident, connected, and carefree in their relationships in and out of the bedroom. And that's one of the reasons why I loved our conversation that you'll hear is that, she talks a lot about pleasure, but really, in the same way I say yoga off the mat, she's taking pleasure out of the bedroom because it really should be part of your life. And then you bring that life into the bedroom, just like, anything else. You create a life and then you bring your career into that life. So, in addition to all her virtual sex, intimacy coaching practice work, she is a guest lecturer at a very popular and prestigious program, the University of Michigan's Human Sexuality Certificate Program. She also does some San Diego State University's marriage and family therapy program support, and she has had the opportunity to lecture internationally on the topic of sexual and pelvic health in Beijing, China. So, all the show notes will have where to hang out and find her, but you can take a look at www.bewellwithrose.com and take a listen to our intriguing conversation on intimacy and pleasure coming up.
Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland, PT. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
Great. Well, thanks again. You heard the intro. We're here at episode 69 of Owning Her Health. So I wanted to definitely bring in some intimacy and conversations and play off of that a little bit, because we do need some joy. And we do need some pleasure and we do need some fun. I mean, I'm working on that. Part of me re-embracing my femininity and the feminine power lean into things has been that I realized I was running on that masculine force and I was playing the game as instructed, but it's not really a fun game. There's not a lot of play. If there's any play, it's a competition. And that doesn't necessarily work in the bedroom or in relationships or just conversations in general. So today I have Dr. Rose Schlaff. As you hear, she's a sex coach and pelvic floor physical therapist. And we've been in each other's circles for a while. And it just got to be that, we both hit this $1 million mindset and reconnected. And so she's the perfect person to be speaking, particularly on her expertise of intimacy is where she's talking to. So Dr. Rose, please introduce us to who you are and give us a little background. Like, how the heck did you get from I'm going to be a physical therapist to I'm going to be working on relational intimacy and sex coaching and all of that? How did you get there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be here first off. So thank you for having me. So I, have always been that one friend that people went to for sensitive, embarrassing questions. And I feel like it's always been my superpower to make the uncomfortable comfortable. And in undergrad, I was really torn. I was like, do I want to be a sex therapist? Do I want to be a physical therapist? I had, my mom has a disability and I had seen the power of physical therapy and how much it could impact without any medication, without anything. And ultimately I decided to go physical therapy and found out that pelvic physical therapy was a thing. I'm like, perfect. I can continue talking about the sensitive pieces, but I can move around. I can take away people's pain. I can empower them in their bodies, just like everything I saw with my mom's physical therapist. And that was great for me. I was in a dream job. I was working with world-renowned sexual medicine physician, Dr. Irwin Goldstein. We had an incredible biopsychosocial model where every person who walked through the door would see physical therapy, would see sex therapy, would get a physician eval. And I was in heaven professionally. But personally, I was having a massive hormonal health blow up that just completely disconnected me from my body, from my pleasure, from my joy, from my partner. I felt drained after every day at my dream job, which was never happening before. And I got through about a year and a half of working with various medical and mental health professionals. And obviously, I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I'm knowledgeable, I'm resourceful, and yet I could not find anyone who would listen to me, who would give me next steps for helping me get back to the person I once was after I had quote unquote normal lab values.
Mm.
And that's when I really had to get curious and get creative. I felt gaslit, I felt disregarded, and I felt really betrayed by the medical system. And so I started studying. I started studying trauma, the nervous system, pleasure, communication, intimacy. I even got coaching and functional nutrition certified. And along that journey, I started coming back to myself. And it was a journey of self-intimacy. It was a journey of learning what my body was trying to tell me so badly that I just could not hear it. And then learning about all the factors that impact our ability to feel good in our body, in our relationships, in and out of the bedroom. And as I started talking about all these sneaky things that I didn't learn about in physical therapy school, I didn't learn about in undergrad, which is how many factors our culture has, like how many sneaky factors impact women and people who are socialized as women, creating this sense of urge to overgive, urge to people please, urge to be perfect. And it really led to this massive depletion of myself. And I know I wasn't alone. I know all the hundreds of women and queer people I was talking to in my clinic were telling me similar stories of medical gaslighting, of feeling like, okay, doctors are just telling me this is the way it is, right? Like I'm having pain or I'm not enjoying sex anymore in this certain season of life. Well, that's just is what it is. You're a woman, you have a vagina,
Mm-hmm.
this is just what it is. Or, you have heavy, painful periods that last, knock you out for a day or two. Well, that's just what it is to be a
Right.
woman. Or, oh, you're a parent now. Oh, well, say goodbye to your sex life. That's just is the way it is. And for me, I I could not accept that any longer. I felt like a shell of the person I once was. And I basically created the program that I needed. It's multifactorial. It really connects the intersectionalities of my identity as well as my lived experience. And it also is filled with simple daily steps. I was hugely depleted when I went on this journey, and I needed to make it simple so that I could do it. And
Yeah.
as I started sharing this with the people in my clinic, I saw people did so much better, right? Not just getting from dysfunctional to functional, but really went from functional to thriving and feeling good again in their bodies and their relationships and feeling like they got their power back. And that's how I kind of turned right into this
Mm-hmm.
direction, right? My own massive health situation.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing is perfectly that whole medicine woman rising journey where, that really is part of the feminine power aspect where uh, a lot of our um, power and ability, personal power and spiritual power, financial power, relational power, so much on that particular track is about us um, doing the healer's journey as well as the hero's journey. And
Yeah.
so much of the healer's work is, I had to go through something to overcome the barriers already in why I, what I couldn't see, and speaking holistically. And, like you said, whether you're speaking with, queer folk or straight laced 100%, the typical full package of what a woman should be or supposed to be or what, in that whole thing, we're really missing out on a conversation with our, like it's not even a thought process. Of course, when a man says they're having impotence or some sort of problem or anytime, nobody's sitting there being like, well, do you have kids yet?
Right.
Are you working a lot? Like, is this something like you should be thinking about at your age? I mean, it could be
Yeah.
an 80-year-old guy walking in there and they're like, it's almost on their questionnaire, probably, like making sure that
Right.
that's covered. And
Right.
there is a lot of inequality, but now I think with the conversation being so like, women's rights and what we've gotten, which we've gotten far, sometimes we don't realize there's inequity gaps that need, like what you were describing, is there was maybe access to some things for you could get your
Mhm.
numbers right
Mhm.
equally, fairly, but the inequity in which, really getting your life back and what's
Mhm.
important to a woman versus a man, or somebody suffering from this condition after a certain point versus another point in their life, is really an issue there. So describe how your program, I know you have a coaching program, correct, that you run a couple times a year,
Mhm.
that structure, how does that really work to help some people on because I would assume, since you're holistically educated, like just getting their whole, like addressing their whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with what you just shared, right? Like impotence is talked about, at the get of any conversation. And I can't tell
Mm,
you how many women and people with uteruses I've talked to who've been told, oh, it's in your head, or have you just tried some wine and lube, right? And
right.
we have to do better. But for me, I combine what I think of are the big pillars here that impact our sexual wellness and our ability to connect intimately. So one big pillar here is really identifying the societal narratives that are impacting how we show up, not just in the bedroom, but in our daily life, right? I'm a big believer that how we do one thing is how we do everything. And if we are in the bedroom feeling like either we can't calm down, right, like our brain is racing, we're thinking about our to-do list, or we're feeling like we may want something different but it feels uncomfortable to ask for it, or gosh, we're just not even sure what we want or need, right? All of that is not only impacting the bedroom, right? It's impacting how you show up in your work, in your friendships, in your other relationships, where we need to understand, one, what our intuition is telling us, what we actually desire. Two, we need to feel calm and confident communicating that, asking
Right.
for it, wanting it. And then three, we need to practice receiving and
Mm,
actually deepening into pleasure, right? And really dispel that myth that so many women grow up hearing, which is you're taking up too much space and your only value is to support others, right? That kind of caregiving complex. I certainly had that. Um, so that's one main pillar, right? Understanding the societal narratives that are sneakily impacting the way we show up in the bedroom and out. And I think about this like a bunch of apps on our phone that we just forgot were open and our phone battery is draining super fast. We're like, why? What's going on? And then we look, there's so many apps that are just running in the background. We're like, oh my gosh, let me just close these.
right.
And our
And you're
battery drains so much
clueless
less.
as to, like, you're like, when did I even open these things?
Yes. Yes. You're like,
Right.
I
So
haven't
like
used
in our
Uber since.
right, I know. And so like you're realizing in your life, like you can be like that too, right? Like
Yes.
you could be like halfway through the week and not realize how many tabs you've opened up inside.
Absolutely. So that's a big pillar of my work is really overcoming those narratives. And then the other piece is really standing in your power, which is identifying your desire and communicating it. So having clear communication scripts and practice, both with your partner, with your job. Again, when we reclaim power in all areas of life, we can show it more powerfully in the bedroom and in our romantic and intimate relationships.
Mm.
And then the third piece of this is really acknowledging there are a lot of physical factors that impact our sexual wellness and our ability to be intimate, right? Whether it's looking at our nervous system, are we in a chronic fight and flight because of the state of the world, right? What most of us are, but do we know how to shift out of that when we want to? Do we have a ritual to shift out of that when we're ready to be intimate, when we're ready to receive, when we're ready to deepen into pleasure? Or are we still in that go, go, go mode? And then looking at the pelvic floor and breath, right? What's that connection like? Can we deepen into pleasure, deepen into intimacy by using our breath? So we're relaxing, but we're also able to contract more strongly during orgasm because we have this connection with our pelvic floor and our body. We no longer feel like our body and our brain are fighting one another. They're actually on the same page working to support us. And then we talk about hormones, right? At different areas of your cycle, if you have a uterus, what does that look like? How might you show up differently? What are the strategies so that you can, if you want to, get in the mood and stay in the mood at any point in the month? But we have compassion knowing that when I'm ovulating, it's going to look a little bit differently than when I'm menstruating, right? If I so
Right.
choose. And just having that knowledge is powerful.
Yeah,
And
there's so much for our it reminds me of, one of the biggest things I used to tell people, and I still do. It's like hey, you have a room in your house and you
yeah,
never go in there, but everybody else gets to go in there. And
yep.
everybody else knows what's in there. And
Mhm.
they all look like all the time, and you've never opened the door, and maybe you've opened the door real quick and then you're like, but like I would be like, you couldn't believe when I was working more clinically, I mean, you could, but just anybody listening who's not
Right.
worked with pelvic health, you talking to a 50-year-old woman and you're the first one to give her a mirror to look there. And you're
Yes.
just like, that's ridiculous, because we all know how often and how soon men are looking at their penises
Right.
and
Right.
showing it to us,
Yeah.
right? Right? I mean, like, that's part of the thing. Let's really take it out. So you've
Yeah.
got these three pillars. And, I want to ask you before we go much further, how do you define intimacy? Because I think sometimes we make it
Mm,
really complicated. And so
yeah.
bringing it into our life and bringing pleasure into our life, it makes it like we're making it like super complicated. Like for once, like you're saying, it's like it's not just what's in the bedroom. And I always say that about yoga. Like yoga's the stuff like you should be practicing it off the mat. If you're only doing it on the
Yes.
mat, you're not even there. If you're only
Yes.
practicing, your relationship and your intimacy and communication with people in a bedroom, you're
Mhm.
you're not you're not you're wearing a mask. We've got to work
Yeah.
on that. So how do you define intimacy?
Yeah. Intimacy is just this intentional practice of closeness and vulnerability and showing yourself to another person and showing yourself to yourself, right? So we can have self-intimacy where we're really non-judgmentally opening our eyes and we're saying, what's going on there? How am I feeling? What's really going on? Where you actually look at it, right? Sometimes I talk about this like the dish full of, or the sink full of dirty dishes, right? We're like, we've all been in that season where we're like, I know that there's dishes. I can't
Right.
look at it.
I
I
can't deal
don't,
with it. It's right now. I need to pretend it's not there.
I need to
Yeah.
pretend it's not there, right? And so I think a lot of the time couples can get to that place where um, a part of their relationship feels like an elephant in the room. Maybe it's a hard conversation. Maybe it is they're on different pages about how much sex they want to be having. But what happens is we stop looking at it. And so I think that just like dishes, right? If we do it a little bit every day, there's no pile up. We don't feel like we want to look away. And so I think intimacy is most successful when we have little sexy snacks, right? Little intimacy snacks, little
Mm-hmm.
pleasure snacks where we're saying, one of my favorite ones is, hey, we watch Netflix every single day together. Why not just do a 5-minute massage, for each of
Mm,
us in that time? It's a little bit of physical intimacy so that whenever we are having sex or we are being, more intentionally intimate, like maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once a month, whatever works for you, but there's not all this built up pressure to do everything, right? We're not approaching this overflowing sink of dishes and being like, oh my God, this is exhausting. It's just, it feels easy, it feels practiced. And I will say, people oftentimes ask me too, like, what's your definition of pleasure? What's your definition of sex? For me,
mhm,
sex is anytime I'm connecting to my body, to myself, and or a partner and feeling good.
mm,
That's it. It doesn't involve orgasm,
mhm,
it doesn't involve penetration. And that's a win for me. And I think that a lot of my work is taking the pressure off of sex. And we do that by redefining what sex looks like, what intimacy looks like, having little snacks of intimacy so that it's not building up, but then also taking the pressure off the outcomes so that we're always successful, no matter whether it's a fast food version of intimacy where we're making out for 5 minutes and going to sleep, or a Michelin star meal version of intimacy, right? It's just like we can really enjoy French fries or we can really enjoy a 4 or 5 course meal.
mhm.
There's different versions of intimacy that
Love
we
it.
can really enjoy. And
Love it.
it's a spectrum. You get to build your menu, but know that you're successful anywhere on that menu. You've eaten.
Right.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is like, it's I mean, we're doing the same thing, which has always been my, like people are like, "Oh, you're doing such different stuff than you." I'm like, "No, it's all the same stuff. It's self-identity, know
Yeah.
who you are, what do I want,
Yeah.
communicate it. It's all self-leadership, soul leadership, and
Hmm.
then relationship.
Yep.
Then you make a business, or then you get married, or then you start a career, or then and it really comes down to we've got to know ourselves, and so many people don't. We're running from it, right? So there's plenty
Hmm.
of business for both of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So but it's sad, it's really sad. So um Rose, knowing what you know and walking your journey, I don't know how long your journey's been, but like the Rose of 10 years ago, the
Mm.
one that I don't know, how long you've been a physical therapist and this and that, but like at that person right there where she was on her whole life's journey right now of
Yeah.
evolution, if you could whisper in her ear right now, because on a quantum level, we're supposed to be like, it's now is the only time there is, right? So we could
Right.
always whisper into that inner child's or young maiden's ear and
Mhm.
change the perspective moving forward. What would you right now tell her?
Mhm. I think one of the hardest things for me to learn on my journey, but one of the most impactful things was really this idea of self-focus versus other focus. And
Mm,
what I mean by that is when you're in a situation, shining your spotlight in, right? Asking yourself, how do I feel about this? What do I think about this? What do I need in this situation? Versus shining it out. How are they responding to me? What do they think? What do they need? How do they feel? And if I could whisper in my 10 years ago self's ear, I I would say something about that. And I would talk to her about how much it matters, how she feels, what she thinks, what she needs, and that her job is not to help other people navigate their emotions, take responsibility for their emotions, take responsibility for their health and wellness. Um, it's really about deepening her connection to her. And she had no, she would have been like, huh?
right. Yeah, because you gotta evolve as a person to even be receptive of this. I mean,
Right.
I brought yoga in because I was just bored with damn regular physical therapy for the kids. I didn't have a
Right.
concept.
Right. Right. And I just think about um just the drive that I had were all of the shoulds of society, right? Like, oh, I want to get into physical therapy school, so I should take these classes and
Mm,
I should do these internships. And there was just no space for desire. Um, and it was all very tight, very tense, very pressure filled, very outcome driven. right? And I want to be a great physical therapist, so I have to do this. I want to, be good for my patients, so I better learn about this, right? None of it was me. And so I think I would whisper to her, what do you want? What do you really,
Such an
really
important
want
question.
outside of what you think you need professionally, outside of what you think would make the people in your life happy, outside of what it means to be a good friend, a good partner, a good daughter? What do you really want? When do you feel really good in your body? And
Mhm.
for her, that's always been dance. It's always been dance. And in that season of my life, I wasn't dancing because I was quote unquote too busy.
Mm,
Right. And I've really come back to that now. I
beautiful.
salsa dance, I dance heels, and it's such a key piece of my pleasure. And
Right.
it's so important, that
It's
self-pleasure practice.
you need that balance of the play. Uh, I have one spiritual teacher that said, be always be childlike, not childish, but always be
Hmm.
childlike. And I think a lot of women, I was firstborn. My youngest
Me
brother was
too.
11 years younger than me. I was parentified very early. I mean, the girl firstborn is
Yep.
basically like goodbye, joy, play,
Yep. Me
sooner versus
too.
later, right? And then as
Hmm.
women, it's like even how you sit and
Yeah.
what we're going to wear today
Yep.
and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that underlying that, not at all about victimization, because I am not on that gravy train. I'm like,
Mm-mm.
feminism sort of went off there, and I'm like, get off of it. You got to get past it. Like, you've got to take responsibility where responsibility is due. But it
Yeah.
is that balance that we need to get back. So we need to kind of understand the full spectrum. We know that seriousness. We know the whole warrior thing. We know the whole hunter. But you know what? We have to know the farmer too, the
Mm, mhm,
cultivator, the
mhm,
nourisher, and things like that. So I love that. Let me flip that, Rose. So now let's say you're successful with your program. You do what you want to do and some of the things you're involved in, and it's 10 years down the road.
mm.
Okay. We're past this pandemic or whatever the heck we're in right now, whatever we're doing, the whole global reset. And, we're 10 years down the road. You're doing what you're doing. What do you hope
Mm,
she's telling you right now?
mm. I I am so grateful for the place that I'm in right now. I talk about my work is all about pleasure, and yes, that has to do with sex, but it's so much more than that. It's in, waking up in the morning and asking yourself, what would feel really good right now? Would scrolling on my phone feel good, or would journaling feel good? Right? What would feel really good between client calls right now? Would it be walking outside? Would it be doing a dance party? And I'm so grateful for the way that I've really integrated and embodied my work exactly in this season of life. And so
Mhm.
when I think about her 10 years down the line, I I imagine her just telling me how proud she is of me, and how far I've come even in the last 5 years. And um I imagine her just whispering all the ways that she's continuing to deepen into pleasure, all the ways that she's dancing, all the ways that she's traveling, all the deep, valuable friendships that she's making that are resentment free because she is so in tune with herself. She's so aligned. And I imagine she's telling me about all of the extra capacity, because what I've found is as I've deepened into this work, I'm able to show up in a bigger way for the people in my life, and not out of obligation, not out of people
Mhm.
pleasing, not out of
Mhm.
should, but because my cup is so full that it can be an embodied fuck yes. Like, I want to show up,
Mhm.
and it actually gives me pleasure to, not because I feel like I need to save you, not because I feel like you're not capable, but because it would give me so much joy. And so I want her to tell me about those relationships that she's continued to deepen into. And I want her to tell me about all of the people that she's impacted, all of the people who have integrated pleasure and had that trickle down to the rest of their community. I was just at a incredible retreat led by a client of mine who, it's a marketing retreat, right? It has nothing to do with sex, but she had me come in to lead body movements to connect to your body, right? Connect to your intuition of, so that you can decide, where is my business going to go? And then she had me lead these visualizations that I do with my one-on-one clients who are coming to me for sex and pleasure. And it was all about infusing pleasure into your business. And I'm just so excited, because I never would have thought, back in pelvic PT clinic days, that my work would impact a business owner who's helping other business owners who are helping then some, right? And that's such a gift. So I would love to hear about all the people that she has impacted with this work.
Because congratulations on jumping that barrier, because you're right. Like, what they teach you is literally, no pun intended, work in the box, right?
Yep.
And my conversation has always been guys, who's with me that holistic women's health should involve the whole woman.
Yes.
Are we really helping the whole conversation if we keep advertising how I'm going to help your breasts and your vagina? Let's, or maybe pregnancy, because that's where it started. I trained with Elizabeth Noble, who was so I'm old like that. So she never had that concept. She was literally using energy work, and that's why I loved her. I was like, oh my God, this woman's insane. I love her. But we got to kind of get out of that box and be speaking at these business, again, that's my new company is called Mind Body Enterprises. And it's always been the same thing, because if you cannot understand it at a quantum level, if you cannot understand or that if you're miserable, it's going to impact your career. It's going to impact your relationships, so why is it called Mind Body Enterprises? And then I'm sitting there teaching, leadership, core leadership, soul leadership development, and personal branding, bringing that to market, or packaging yourself, because it is mind body.
It is. It has to be.
It has to be. You're a whole person. If we're really going to change healthcare, we've got to start having, and whoever's listening to this, get out of your box, because we are no longer, it is 21st century. Okay. And we're 22 years into it. So I don't know where you've been for the past 22 years, but we're not doing industrialization of the 20th century and the 19th century move into it. That's where the shift is. That's where the energy shift is. And I truly do believe, and I thank you so much for being here, because I think it's going to take the women healers to take a leadership role, instead of all being off on their retreat space in the Uganda, where everybody's got to go and not live in the real world. We're going to have to start social healing. It's got to be outside of, not only just outside of a woman's body, but in the collective. Because this is the body, right, of Earth. So thank you so much for sort of being a representation of that, because we need more people like you out there. So excited for you. Give us an idea, if somebody's listening here and they're like, oh man, that Dr. Rose, I want to know what's going on. Where can I hook up with her? This sounds really appealing to me. Maybe even another clinician that wants to understand and maybe develop their practice more like yours. Where's the best way to get to you, find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm at Be Well with Rose, all spelled out, BEWELLWITH Rose. Same with my website, bewellwithrose.com.
Great branding, girl. Good job. Good job.
Those are, great places to find me. And if you are a clinician and you're listening to this and wondering, I am a pelvic PT, or I am, doing kind of the 9 to 5 within the wellness space, and I'm in my box and I'm wondering how you incorporated this, please reach out. I love talking to other clinicians. I think it's so important for us, Lisette, we are also an example of what's possible for other healthcare providers. And I can't tell you how much happier and healthier. I mean, ultimately, I left my job due to another health issue. I had a concussion. I had to, but I can't tell you how much happier and healthier I've been since I've started my business, because I've been able to tailor it exactly to me. And So if anyone's listening to this and you're thinking about, oh my gosh, okay, I do want to deepen pleasure in my life, in my bedroom, in my business. I want to be connected to my body. I would love to talk with you. I do free 20-minute phone consults, so you can find that on my website. And I work with people one-on-one. I work with couples, and then I also have about 3 times a year small intimate groups for women and queer leaders who want to do this in community. I think it's so important to talk about pleasure and intimacy in community, because the number one thing that people tell me is the most powerful thing about my work is knowing that they're not alone. And it's one thing to hear me say you're not alone. It's another to see, okay, Demetria is saying exactly what I just said. And, oh, Karen, it just said exactly what I said. And, Charisse just said exactly how I felt last week. And that really is powerful.
Yeah. I mean, the human
Powerful.
condition is the ego, right? Like that's the main human condition that we all kind of struggle with for dis-ease, is that
Yes.
edging God out. I love that.
Yes.
The way Dr. Wayne Dyer had said that is like, it's edging God out. And it really is, whether you believe in a God or not, it's the whole idea though of like that there's something bigger, there's a bigger vision, there's a world view that's not necessarily, we're talking a lot on pain in this episode, but pleasure, but there is a pain in living, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And when you can do that with other people, that's how we're made. We're made to sort of, at our primal sense, to sort of like, take on the tribe or the circle. And I think especially for women, we've been so, those coffee clutches when all the guys went to work were our work, like they were our modern work, and then we were like, no, we don't, that's belittling us. I'm like, ladies, you don't even understand what you gave up by not recreating that out in the world. And these are ways that we can do it. You just, even this conversation. So like I said, I thank you for being here. So everything is going to be on my main show notes in terms of, links and this and that. So definitely, guys, if you're listening, make sure you go onto the main Libsyn page that I usually share when I share the episode, as well as listening on, Apple, Spotify, whatever your favorite thing, Amazon, wherever the heck it is. That you're listening, make sure you go over to the show notes, and then you can click on things real easy. Make it super simple to connect with Rose. Yes. And if you're listening to this and you are realizing that pleasure has not been a part of it, please know you were conditioned that way. You were conditioned that way, and that's why this idea of, I consider pleasure seeking a feminine code. Men have it, women have it, but it's not activated all the time, or it's been subdued. And I really, you're not alone. It's just something that's got to be sort of like found and whatever in you. But yeah, we've got to get back to it. Not childish, childlike. Awe and wonder.
Yes. And I just want to say, there are so many ways that, pleasure deficits will show up, right? It might be that we find our mind racing. It might be that we look at our partner and we wish we wanted to have sex, but we just can't
not feeling
ourselves there, right? It could be that we feel like we're kind of dragging through our day or kind of checking things off the box, including intimacy. And so if any of this sounds like you, please reach out. I love having conversations about, what did you learn from this episode? Hit me up on Instagram. I love that conversation. And
yes,
definitely. If you're like, I wish I knew how to start the conversation, I have a free guide called Let's Talk About Sex, which is really more like about intimacy, but it's the fun fill in the blank Mad Lib style guide.
We'll put that link too, so just make sure I have that direct link to get that download as well, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's just bewellwithrose.com/talk. So
all right. Did you hear that, everyone? And I'll put that on the thing. All right, guys. Well, thank you, guys. Episode 69 was awesome. Thank you so much. And as always, we'll catch you again on another episode of Owning Her Health right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health with Dr. Lisa. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.